Hi friends, it's Melissa from Polka Dot Chair here with you again to do a little what's on my cutting table Monday chit chat. Hope you guys had a great weekend. We had a really nice weekend. I had my aunt and uncle visiting from upstate New York, and then we were able to spend some time with my husband's family over Father's Day weekend, and I hope you guys had a lovely weekend. Ours, like I said, it was a nice weekend, but it was very busy. I feel like there's a lot going on right now with work and just with other things. So it's nice to be able to take a moment, kind of take a deep breath and check in with you guys, show you some of the things I'm working on. Hope you guys enjoy it. Also helps me to kind of clear my head, do a little mental brain dump of all the things that I'm trying to accomplish work-wise. I have a few things to share with you today. It's actually a busy week for shares. Seems like a lot of things that I've been working on for months are coming out in the next few weeks. So I'm going to try and not overload with information. I've got a combination of freebies to share with you and a few new patterns and fabric to share with you as well. So let's dive in. A quick overview of what's going to be in the video. I'm going to share with you a couple of my summer sewing projects, including my personal progress on sewing the July kit of the month that is in the shop. Have an update on the Bluegrass Charm fabric and quilt patterns that I've been chatting about for months to share with you. I have information about the summer block party and a tiny little teaser of what is coming. And lastly, I have a freebie quilt block pattern to share with you that is a very large 14 by 20 block. I shared it on the blog last week, and it is also going to be one of my slow summer sewing projects. I made some good progress last week on stitching up a navy blue version of our June project kit, which are the summer is the we got summer block party coming out this week, so I've got summer block. I keep thinking that in my head, but that's not what this is. I've been working on a navy version of the Stripey Sails and Stars quilt kit, which is our June drop in the shop, and I'll show you how far I got. I started working from the pattern and I had a bunch of blocks sewn, and this is not how the pattern tells you to sew it. The pattern tells you to sew it all the way, each row all the way across. And if you're familiar with the pattern, you know that there are 2 more blocks that need to be on this top row to make this a fuller quilt. But I just got so excited and I wanted to kind of see what it was going to look like in the navy version that I stitched up like the top left corner of the quilt. So as it stands right now, this quilt is 44 by 44, and you can see the bottom. So like I said before, it's the only bad thing with this YouTube setup. Everything's this way and quilts are always this way. I'm debating about whether or not to keep it this size or keep going and sew it up the same size as on the pattern, because I feel like this is a really good size for a baby or a kid's quilt at 44 by 44, and I feel like it's not a bad idea to keep a fun baby quilt on hand. But then on the other hand, I really want this in a full quilt so that we can take it to the lake with this summer, throw it in the back of the car, go on picnics and things like that. And I think the navy version is really good for that because it will hold up a little bit better to, being washed and thrown around and things like that. And when I say thrown around, I mean that lightly. We're not going to drag this through the mud. It's not going to be the family picnic quilt, but we do go boating a lot in the summer, and I do think this would be really fun to take on the boat, especially in the evenings after everything really cools off. That was my big project for the week sewing wise, and I set myself a goal to get that done that week, and I did, which is something that doesn't happen very often, so I'm going to celebrate it when it does happen. As always, I'll be sure to share with you guys what I decide to do with the rest of that quilt top. Before we dive into the Bluegrass Charm stuff, if you are in the Patreon group, block 5 of our Christmas quilt along, the seasonal sparkler quilt posted, and this is the block. So make sure you stop by the Patreon group and grab your PDF for the block. The video is also available there, walking you through all the steps to construct that block. So don't miss that if you are in our group. And if you're not and still want to join, you can find information for joining in the description of the video. All right, let's talk Bluegrass Charm. I need to do a video just dedicated entirely to the Bluegrass Charm because this video can't be 3 hours long. It needs to be like 30 minutes long. I want to give you just a quick introduction to the line. I'll share some of the prints in the line and then post another video later this week or early next week with more details about the line. But some of you may be wondering, what in the world, why do you keep talking about what's Bluegrass Charm? I am a fabric designer for Riley Lake Designs. I think this might be my 15th fabric collection, but I don't know, I need to count. I've done quite a few collections with them, and this one that came out in June is, I think it might be one of my favorites. I know I say that with every line, but I do feel like artistically, this is one where I really felt like it exemplified my style, and I felt like my skills as a designer were starting to catch up a little bit more to what is in my head. This is the line. It is called Bluegrass Charm because I live in Kentucky, and this collection was inspired by a lot of what I see in Kentucky. It's a beautiful green state with lots of trees and gorgeous flowers. As you drive through the state, you'll see family farms and cities and old buildings and barns with big quilt blocks on them, which is one of my favorite things about living here and driving through the state. So this line is loosely inspired by that. If you remember, a few years ago I did a derby line. This one is not necessarily derby inspired, just more kind of a summer floral country inspired fabric collection. So I'll show you a close-up of a few of the prints of the line. I won't do like a full one because there's 21 prints and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'll hold up kind of a few of the main prints. So this is the main floral in the line. Which features a collection of roses and hydrangeas, which are both flowers that we have here. It's so nice, it's so green, and I feel like I plant something in the ground and it just grows, which is funny because I grew up in Utah, and I know my dad's a big gardener, and I joke all the time with him about how little attention I pay to my hydrangea plants and how large they get, and he jokes about how much attention he pays to his plants, and sometimes they do and don't. Another here is that same print in a lighter color, in that lighter blue, and then it also comes in an ivory background. And this is the collection I was sewing with. I don't know if you guys remember last week how I pulled the wrong white for that pink and green quilt. So this is the collection I was sewing with that had the kind of off-white, and that's where that's kind of coming in there. That's the main print. And then we have a few coordinating prints. So I've got a toile, and this one is just very inspired by the cute little homes and horses and pastures that we see as we drive around the state. This is, I'm calling it the wallpaper because it reminds me of like a vintage wallpaper you would see in an old home. And of course you can't have a line inspired by Kentucky without a horse fabric, so here is the horse print from the line. Then we've got a gingham, a stripe in a few different colorways, and a couple more little coordinates. These little florals are just so great to sew with because they just blend in so nicely with the other fabrics in your quilt. So you can kind of see just a good overview of that. And I definitely have a green, nice bright green, just like our Kentucky bluegrass, which is not blue but green. But it's actually called bluegrass because if you let it grow long enough, it gets little blue flowers. So that's where that name comes from. That fabric is in stores now. I know Hawthorne Threads has it. A lot of Etsy sellers have it. Fat Quarter Shop just got theirs. And I have some that I'll be listing pre-cuts in the shop with the line as well. So if you are on our shop email list, I'll send out an email as soon as those pre-cuts go live in the shop. And the patterns are here. The patterns that I spent all winter making are finally here. So we've got the first one, which is Bluegrass Pastures. These are foundation paper pieced or traditional pieced. I took your guys' advice and I did both directions for this pattern. Horse fences and then raw edge applique horses. This one is this is a fat quarter friendly pattern. Actually, all three of the patterns are fat quarter friendly. Second one is the Bluegrass Sampler, and this will be an official quilt along that I'll be hosting here on YouTube in August. And when I have the dates for that, I'll announce that. And then Bluegrass Crossing, which is similar to my picnic crossing quilt, but it's smaller blocks set a little bit differently, hence the name. These quilt blocks are Goose Tracks quilt blocks. I never know if that's like Goose Tracks or Goose Track. And I'm not sure if it's the exact traditional construction of this, but it's my interpretation of it, that in a way to piece it, that you don't have any Y seams. It's just all straight pieced, which is really nice and goes together really quickly. I'll show you a couple of samples of those blocks. So that's one of the blocks. You can see from the back, straightforward construction, which should hopefully help you make that quilt pretty quick. And I do have the quilts. I've shown them before here, but I'll just quickly show them again. This is the sampler quilt. As always, I'll make sure to drop a photo in. And then here is the Pastures quilt. You can grab these patterns in my shop starting today. You can get a digital copy or a printed copy that we send to you, whatever works best for you. If you're outside the United States, you'll need to grab them in our Etsy shop, which is etsy.com/shop/polka-dot-chair, because of international tax collection issues. So Etsy takes care of that for us. That's why we don't sell internationally in our direct shop. All right, let's talk about the summer block party. Last year, I got together with a group of Riley Blake Designs fabric designers, and we made a fun sampler quilt, and we shared the quilt blocks with our readers. There were 7 different quilt blocks designed by 7 different designers, and the blocks were sent out over the course of a couple weeks in June last year. Last year, we did a nautical inspired quilt. This year, the quilt is beachy inspired. So we are calling it the Summer Beach Block Party. And last year the blocks were 12 by 12. This year the blocks are 18 by 18. You can finish them however you want, but if you finish them with the directions that we will share with you, the quilt will be 69 by 69 when it is finished. And I can share with you the fabrics we have chosen for the quilt. I cannot share with you any of the blocks because the blocks are kept a secret until they go out. The blocks start sending out next Monday, I think it's the 23rd of June, that could be wrong, and they are sent out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we're not doing it every day like we did last year. We're doing it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, just to kind of give you guys a breather in between the block days. So these are the fabrics we are going with. All right, so there you can see we have this year, instead of doing all solids, we have a combination of solids and Riley Blake's basics. So we've got some sparkler fabrics, which is a line of mine. This color is called Beach. We've got solid fabrics, and we've got Dainty Daisy, which is the basic by Bev McCullough. We talked about it one week on one of our little weekly chats. We've got Paparazzi, more Dainty Daisy, more solid. We've got Bee Cross Stitch by Lori Holt. And then the rest are sparkler and solids. Don't worry if you didn't catch that, because if you decide to sign up for the summer block party, we will send you a PDF with all of the fabric requirements for the quilt and the specific names of the fabrics used in the quilt. You do not have to use these fabrics. It's totally up to you. But if you're pulling maybe from your fabric stash at home, this would kind of give you an idea of the colors that you're looking for. We chose all Riley Blake Designs colors because they can apply across the colors are the same across multiple fabric lines. So this color is called Raindrop. And if you don't want to use the solid raindrop, but you want to use raindrop in another print, like a check or a dot or something, you can use raindrop in that. We did check before we designed this, and all of these fabrics are in stock with Riley Blake. And I will link to a few retailers. Off the top of my head, I know Hawthorne Threads has everything in stock. Fat Quarter Shop carries a wide variety of Riley Blake designs, basics, as does Etsy and a lot of other shops. If you have a shop that has these basics in stock, let me know. I'm happy to link. I am not going to be selling any of this. I'm not doing kits for this. These are all fabric colors that are readily available on the market, and you may be able to find other substitutions with other manufacturers. I just don't know the names of the colors of those. To sign up for the summer block party, use the link that I have here in the description. Fill out the form. If you get the email with the welcome and the introduction PDF with the fabric requirements, you are all signed up. And then starting next week, we will send you a block pattern a day. Not a day. We did it a day last year. We'll send you 9 block patterns over the course of a few weeks, and then finishing instructions at the end. So there are 9 blocks this year. The blocks are 18 by 18, and the blocks go out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. When you do sign up for the summer block party, it does enroll you in the newsletters of all 9 designers on the list. I mentioned it before, these are all people I know personally. They're great designers with really wonderful newsletters that I think you would enjoy. Otherwise, I would not be participating in this, but I personally subscribe to all their newsletters and they have really great information. You can also unsubscribe with one click anytime after that if you want to. As the blocks come out, I will share them with you here on our weekly chats. Last thing, I have a fun freebie for you guys on the blog. It is one of our Wednesday tutorials. If you've been on Instagram, you've probably seen that there are a lot of people making flag quilts right now, and there are a lot of different patterns to choose from. I kind of thought, you know what, I think I might do this. This looks like a fun little summer project, but I thought I need these blocks to be bigger because I don't have time to make like 30 flag quilt blocks with all this other stuff that's going on. But I want this project for me personally to do this summer. So I took one of my older patterns that was for a pillow years and years ago and simplified it, and I have a tutorial for a 14 by 20 flag quilt block. So I have sewn up 3 of these. Obviously these are inspired loosely by the American flag. They are not literal, they are not actual flags, because that I know would be a violation of the flag code. So these are just inspired by the flag. They don't have the right number of stripes, and they don't have stars, obviously. But for this, I am going through my fabric stash and using a lot of fabrics I have left over from other projects. This is some of the fabrics that are in the quilt kit this month too, in that June Sailboat quilt kit. One of the things that's unique about this flag quilt block is that the stripes are made from 2.5-inch strips of fabric. So if you have leftovers from a jelly roll or 2.5-inch pre-cut roll in red and white, or any kind of low volume print, they are perfect for this. So I actually went through my bucket of leftover jelly roll strips to pull fabrics to start making these blocks. That's why they're so big. My plan for this, I have the tutorial for the block on the blog on polkadotchair.com. It's right there at the top. You can print it at home, and then I did a quick mock-up. If you made 15 blocks, then I think the quilt is 68 by 80 something if you add 2.5-inch sashing. I didn't finish the whole quilt yet just because I wanted to get the tutorial up for you guys really quick in case you wanted to start sewing this summer, or at least start like gathering some of your supplies for it. And then as I finish my blocks and sew them together, I'll be sure to share the finishing instructions with you later this summer too. My plan is really simple. I think just so that I get it finished is I'm just gonna sew the blocks and then add 2.5-inch sashing strips in between each one. I'm debating between doing a light blue fabric, such as this damask from the Derby line, as sashing. I don't know if we can mock this up enough to kind of see what it would look like, but this is kind of how my little process of deciding what to do. Sometimes I'll do stuff like this. Like that. I kind of like that. I like the idea of not doing a solid just because it's so scrappy and there's so many different fabrics in there. I think sometimes with scrappy, if you just keep going with scrappy, it looks a little better than if you try and mix in others. The other thing I think might be kind of cute for sashing is this navy stripe from the Bluegrass line, or just a light blue solid fabric. Like this is from the summer block party, but you could do just, the color's called Songbird, so you could just do that too. So we'll see as it progresses. This is more of a creative exercise for myself. I'm going to kind of experiment as I go along. I do have a big box of red, white, and blue scraps pulled together, and I made all 3 of these blocks in I think like an hour this week. So I think I might just give myself an hour a week just for fun sewing as I'm working on other things this year and try and get this quilt done before the end of the summer. It'd be great if I did it before the 4th of July. We'll see how things go. I plan things and then work, you know. I'm sure you guys that have jobs understand things come up and families and all kinds of stuff like that. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section. I'm happy to answer them, or if you have suggestions for future weeks or can't find something that I linked. I did mention a lot of things with links, so they will be in the description, but if you have any problems, just drop it in the comment section and I will be sure to answer it. And I would love it if you guys would like, share, and subscribe. I am kind of new to this YouTube thing, and my kids and my husband are like, you didn't say like, share, subscribe. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna say like, share, subscribe. So if you guys could do that, I would appreciate it too. And hopefully we'll be back again next week with another little what's on my cutting table video.